Hi, this is the Unspecial Podcast. I'm joined with Carmen Carly. Carmen and I met at the Autism Health Summit, and I was honored to have her son Colin on last week, which he will be dropping here in about a month. We had an amazing conversation, and as always, I like to get the parents' perspective as well. So we have a powerful mom joining us who's got a awesome story of that'll bring a lot of hope to the listeners. It'll bring a lot of hope to learn from what she did and how she went about her journey with Colin. So, Carmen, thanks for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's just jump right into it.
Sure.
I'm gonna ask a question that will just get us right to the point. What what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced raising Colin and finding out about the autism diagnosis?
Um, the biggest challenge I would say is finding that balance of the right care from all the different entities. Like we were convinced he needed biomedical interventions, he needed a special diet, he needed ABA therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy. So it takes a while to figure out what your menu of interventions will be, and what that will look like. So that's one challenge. Then funding for all of it. Some of it we chose to do on our own, mostly the biomedical things. And then the ABA therapy, when we had ABA therapy, it was 25 years ago. The recommendation for Colin was 40 hours per week. I think these days they recommend less.
40?
Yeah.
Full-time job.
Yes. So yes, that's how I looked at it. He had a job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you need to find, first of all, back then there weren't as many ABA agencies, so we had to go on a waiting list. Then we need to find an ABA agency that's high quality, because not all of them know exactly what they're doing, or they have what I suspect kind of deals with the funding parties to graduate early or to make low recommendations. So it needs to be reputable in that way. So there was determining what he needs, funding what he needs, and then implementing everything and making sure it remains what you want it to be. Like ABA agencies will teach certain things. Do I agree with it? Do I think that's meeting his needs? Do I have input in the methodology? And yes,
Yeah.
so managing it. And then, with the diet, we had a special diet, so there was a lot of cooking, so we would hire people. So there was a lot of challenges. I don't know that it was one biggest challenge. We used to call it Operation Rescue Colin. So that was the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What how did you know where to start?
But that part was hard because this was 25 years ago. You barely knew anything about autism. I think I had seen a Lifetime movie about it when I was a teenager.
Uh-huh.
And we feel our child was born without the autism. We feel it's a consequence of the vaccinations
Yeah.
with his genetic predisposition. So you don't think, I thought, before I knew anything about autism, you will know when your child has autism when it's born or shortly thereafter. So there's the whole, it occurring later, me being a first time parent. So there was a lot of doubt, learning what autism was and getting a clear picture of it, and then what is available. But I found another mom that our sons were diagnosed within 3 weeks of each other.
Okay.
And to this day, she's my bestie.
Oh,
And we
cool.
did a lot of divide and conquer as far as doing research, I was like, okay, I will look into this ABA thing, whatever that is. I have read a little snippet on the dial-up internet, and
Yeah.
you look into the diet. And then we divided and conquered, so it was less overwhelming, and we would just share the most necessary stuff to each other. We would also go to conferences together, and then either split up for lectures, because it's not like you could look it up afterwards. You either got it or you didn't. Maybe you got a brochure. Um, we would approach doctors in the lobby, like coming from two sides, so they couldn't skip out on us. We had a system, but
Nice.
knowing where to start, there was a lack of information. And once we heard about the ABA therapy, and I understood it. It takes a minute to understand it,
Yeah.
and I've explained a lot what it is over the years. So first, you figure out autism. There is a delay and there is an excess. There's a delay in skills and there's an excess of behaviors that don't help you in life. And
Hmm.
then ABA therapy does this. So
Nice.
what, and then once I read up on it and saw how that was done through positive reinforcement, a lot of redirection, I was like, all right, I think that's what we need. So we found an ABA agency with waiting lists, blah, blah, blah. And while we were waiting, we're like, well, we might as well try this diet thing. What do we have to lose? And it was a good use of time. And also, if you don't do everything at once, it's kind of, I mean, we would have done everything, but it's clear to see what's working immediately. Like Colin was such a responder to the diet.
Okay.
Everyone was like, what have you done? And
Yeah.
then he was ready to learn for ABA. So I don't know exactly how we got there, but we concluded as a family he needed ABA and he needed the diet first.
What were some of the diet changes you had him on?
We did gluten-free, casein-free. That's the diet everybody talks about, because those two substances would convert into his brain into a morphine-like substance
Uh huh.
because he has a leaky gut. It's a long story, but so we pulled him off of that immediately, and then later we ended up taking out all the artificial dyes and color, anything artificial we took out.
Yeah,
And
more
it
nat.
it seemed very overwhelming to start that because he was so addicted to only certain foods and so adamant and sometimes even aggressive if he wouldn't get his food, that it
Oh,
seemed so overwhelming to do it. But so we prepared, and then my goal was, this is all I'm doing for the next 2 weeks. We have nothing scheduled. If he eats cookies for 2 weeks, then he eats cookies for 2 weeks. It was very important to get him on this gluten-free, casein-free journey. And then from what I read, their palate will open up. And exactly that happened. Exactly
wow.
what was described in the literature and the books happened. So he would
Okay.
become more, first a little aggressive because you take away their stuff, but then more clear, more with it, a little more language. It's just like the fog. There's like a mental fog and it gets lifted. And now
Yeah,
they're ready to learn. It was
I see.
very clear for us. People that lived near us or with us, or the therapist, they would ask me, what are you doing? Don't do that again. Or, so
Yeah,
it was not a, other families, it's less clear, but for us, it was black and white.
yeah.
And you have to do it 100%. You cannot do it 99%. So that sometimes is a factor when people think it doesn't work. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a lot of power in that. Just trying trying it all. I mean, what do you have to lose? Trying and see what works,
Yeah.
what doesn't. Everybody's body's different. Everyone's going to react different.
Yep.
And nowadays there's so much therapies and more research in this area that, and you can just go on Google or YouTube
Yes.
and find,
Yes.
and then finding a bestie. I mean, that's huge.
Yes.
That's
That's she
the
we shared.
not not only to find what works for Colin, but also for yourself.
Yes.
And I think a lot of reason I started this podcast is because I would notice in IEP meetings that so many parents were going about this journey alone.
Yeah, community is very important.
And it was just everything is directed towards the child, which is good. They need everything that's available to them,
Mhm.
but the parents are on a significant journey as well. How did you go about? I mean, we're just gonna go there. How did you go about? You took them in to get some vaccines. A couple weeks later, process you're noticing some change. What did you do? How did you deal with the emotional?
Well, our journey was a little different than what you described. So we have put the puzzle pieces together in hindsight
Okay.
that it was the vaccinations,
Uh-huh.
and we have video. So as your child gets older, things need to get into place, and for him, it was more he would lose skills. But I wasn't
Uh-huh.
immediately clued into that.
Gotcha.
I was that he was losing skills, but that it was the vaccinations that were doing it, or the physical dysfunction. I didn't put it together at all.
Uh-huh.
But in hindsight, and the video we have, and the events we have looked back on, it was very clear. And then I clued in when his sister, who was younger, was vaccinated when she was 18 months, and she got very ill. She had a physical reaction, and at the same time, I had read up. I had run into, Dr. Wakefield, the doctor that everybody thinks. Um, well, some people think he's a hero, which I think. Other people think he proclaimed things that weren't true, and he was heavily prosecuted in England. Not legally prosecuted, persecuted is really the word.
Yeah.
And he said that some children would get chronic inflammation from the MMR vaccine, and that is what happened. That was the turning point for Colin, but it was not until in hindsight. But to
Uh-huh.
answer your question, how did you deal with that? When I put it together, well, the one thing I did is try to call up Dr. Wakefield, saying, "Hey, I have one with autism, and the other one is I don't know where this is ending up for her. What do I do?" But he was
Uh-huh.
very gun shy. I would call him. He was in England, and he would never come to the phone. Wonder why? He doesn't
Yeah.
know me, but but then I saw he was speaking somewhere. So I went to the conference and made sure I was the number one question person, at whatever time in the morning with medical files there. And
Uh-huh.
he was there was a lot of pressure on him, so he really didn't want to. He wanted to be on the panel and fade away. And I asked the question, "Hey, this happened to my son. Now it's happening to my daughter. What do I do?" And he's like, "Well, I can't answer that if you don't have your medical file." And I went, "Ta-da!" You could see him go, "Oh man!" But and then at these conferences, these were conferences for desperate parents and medical doctors trying to help. There was two scenarios of doctors. One would be I'm speaking, I'm done, I walk through the middle aisle and I'm handing out cards. The other one was I'm done and I'm like out the door, and so nobody will haunt me because they called us BAMs, bunch of angry moms. And so they would be they'd be
Bams.
running away. So Dr. Wakefield was scenario number two. So he was hitting the fire exit and getting off the stage that way. And it was funny because all the parents were looking at me, looking at him, and they parted like the Red Sea. And I ran around and I caught him. And I was like, "Dr. Wakefield." And then he had his hand on the door and he said, "Why am I not surprised to see you here?" But but he looked at both the children's files, and it was their scopes, and it was great. He really cared, and I understood why he was so hesitant, and he was under so much stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you got some information there, what were some of the biomedical? um, therapies you went after to help Colin get to where he is today?
Uh, well, we did a lot of things. I'm not even sure I remember them all. We did chelation, which is the group name for getting metals out. Colin received a lot of mercury. We never did IV chelation. We did it orally or transdermally. And he also slept on a magnetic mat that weighed so much. My husband was like trying to get it in the bed. We did a lot of things where we thought it might help, but we weren't sure. Like I had covers for electric magnetic radiation on the plugs.
Uh-huh.
Don't know if it worked, but we felt we were in a hurry and we're just going to hit it all. Chelation, we did see results. A- Attacking like yeast overgrowth with supplementation and killers
Okay.
worked. IV glutathione, one of the most successful ones for us in particular,
Oh wow.
which is a detoxifier.
Yeah.
Um, we did chiropractic things. I don't know if I. There's more things we did. I don't.
Yeah.
Tracy Slepsevich, she
Uh-huh.
wrote a book, and
Yep.
I went through that book recently. I think we did most of the things she did, um,
Yeah.
but I. It's been many years, so I don't remember all of them. But IV glutathione was very successful for Colin. But we were part of like a community of like 10 families.
Uh-huh.
So I would go to the different conferences. They would describe chelation, no, yeah, IV glutathione, who was a good candidate. I would listen and go, I think that Colin's a good candidate. So we would find it, doctor, give it to him. Amazing. On the way back, turning pink, starting to talk. Amazing. But
Wow.
all of the other 10 families went there, and some of it, the kids were detoxing too fast and they would become very compulsive. Other ones it would work, and other families saw nothing. So it was a lot of trial and error. For us, it was
Hmm.
very big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge. And I know there's tons of therapies that I learned a lot about at the Autism Health Summit
Yeah.
with, red light therapy, hyperbaric chambers, the PEMF, electromagnetic pulses, which
Hmm.
is very interesting because I'm currently recording, and I recently spoke about a little bit about the journey I'm on with my wife with cancer,
Right.
and I'm recording right now in Mexico from the alternative medicine cancer clinic, and pretty much every therapy here that she is doing was at the conference, and they go hand in hand, cancer and
Yes.
a lot of these autism therapies,
Yes.
because the whole premise is to really get your body and your immune system operating how it's meant to,
Yes.
and these all aid in doing that. So super powerful stuff. The hyperbaric chamber, I've heard a lot of tons of success with that, as well as stem cells. We had a mom on,
Hmm.
and she went through stem cells for her son, and he started talking. The first words he said to her was, "I love you."
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Did Colin lose his speech?
Yes, he was delayed to begin with.
Uh huh.
A lot of people told me, when you still listen to other people just telling you things,
Right.
they would tell me, oh, that's because you're raising him bilingually. I'm originally from the Netherlands and I would speak Dutch to him.
Okay.
And so for a while I thought that was delaying him. And then, oh, he's a boy, he's later. So it was very late. And then he started kind of making up his own words. And then he started losing language. And that's really when I was like, okay, this is not okay.
Right.
Uh, I need to get him assessed. Yes.
Yeah. Did you go through any denial phase, or did you immediately just get to work?
I did not go through a denial phase. I think that's just a little bit how I'm wired. I'm brought up.
Uh huh.
Uh, we just got busy. I'm like, let's
Yeah.
do it. Let's just go after it. I think it makes me feel like I'm in control, and then you don't have to feel things so much.
I see.
You
Yeah.
can dose it better, maybe.
Right, right, right. What? How has autism changed your perspective on life?
Um, well, I think any trial could have done this, but this was a trial for us. Is just
Yeah.
not sweating the small stuff.
Mm,
That was
yeah.
a big one. And balancing that with, seeing the beauty in things. For a while I didn't. And how else has it changed my perspective? Oh yeah. And I think I would have learned this any other way, but again, a trial will probably do this. Is so I had this picture of what life would look like, and this was a very much a turn to from what I thought it would look like, but it's still okay. It's
Hmm.
and I think that now that I'm almost 60, I'm like, of course. But when I was at the beginning of the journey, I wouldn't have figured that out at all.
Right. It's kind of, yeah, like you said, same for me. Like I didn't expect to be in Mexico going
Yes.
through this, especially before all this started going down. Like everything was gravy. We're just living our lives in North Idaho. I still do have a successful construction business. We had just finished remodeling our house, and it was like, oh, this is all going too well, and then boom. But
Yes.
even now, we're 9 months into this journey, and I can see so much good that's come out of it,
Already? That's wonderful.
which is kind of like weird to say because perception for people looking in is like, how could you say that? You don't. It's still the future's uncertain, but it's uncertain at any point in life.
Yes. And it takes a long time it took me much longer to figure that out. It seems like you're very much ahead of the game. I remember going to another conference, and one of the doctors was talking about the blessings of autism.
Uh huh.
And I was like, I wanted to swear a lot. And
Yeah.
like years later, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So I'm happy to hear that you see some blessings already. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. It's good. I think it just comes down to your mindset and your perspective.
Yes.
Kind of like you can perceive everything as negative and miserable,
Hmm.
or like like now our joke is, we're not at a cancer clinic in Mexico. We're out at a international getaway.
There you go.
I mean, we have 4 kids. It's like, what are we ever going to go to Mexico on a trip together?
Without the kids.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So it's always how we look at life. How about balancing raising Colin, getting him all the services and all the in depth journey you're on to get him where he is, and also having another kid in the mix, your daughter.
Yeah. I feel I could have done a little better there. So I was very focused on Operation Rescue Colin,
Uh huh.
and I didn't have a lot of space for other things. And I would look at my daughter, who was the cutest ever, and I go, okay, she's in good hands. She's either with a nanny or um, babysitter, grandparent. She's in good hands. I will now go do this for Colin's program or this for Colin. And I thought I was putting out big fires, which I probably was, but it is a regret I have. I didn't spend enough time with her for the relationship building. I mean, we have a great relationship, and I've made my amends. We are
Yeah.
thick as thieves, but I can never get that time back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I see how it came about. I was so into productivity, and I think it made me move mountains. So I see why I got there, and it really, when I needed to be there for my daughter, if anything happened in school and she needed advocacy, I was all about it. She was never neglected, but the sweet times, I could have given them a little more. I had a hard time being in the moment because of my mindset. That's it.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. What about school? Take me through some of the school challenges.
Colin?
Yeah, like with Colin, getting the services he needed, or is there anything that
Yeah, there's a
you
lot
can
to it.
speak to?
So back then, insurance agencies did not pay for ABA at all. That would have been paid for by the school district and or the regional center, which is the state.
Hmm.
I actually, this became my job. I became a special education advocate.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
Later on, we can talk about that in a minute. But to, I was very naive when I started out doing IEPs, and too naive. I think I got stalled a little.
Yep.
Let me start by saying that I feel everybody in the special needs world provider realm is has the best heart and intent, but a lot of these educators are in a position that there is not enough resources. Or, for example, everybody wanted Colin in a special needs program, while the research said he needed to be in a one-on-one ABA program, taught
Hmm.
tailored to his needs. And if he would go, he wasn't ready for school right away. And if he was ready for school, which was soon thereafter, it would be in a preschool with typical peers. So he would learn from the typical peers and the pace and the language and everything. And then he would go there with an ABA therapist. Well, that's very expensive compared to a special needs preschool with one teacher and one or two aides. So there's a conflict of interest. And
Hmm.
the assessing party is the school district. So the people that are assessing are going to recommend the program. So it took me a minute to clue in. And by the time we clued in, a lot of things had gone wrong. So we ended up retaining an attorney and securing our services that way. And it was extremely draining and stressful financially, emotionally. And but we came out successfully. We secured 40 hours and got some legal reimbursement. But I learned a lot. And I remember looking at my attorney going, I like that. I like what she's doing. So I
Yeah.
started educating myself. She had gone to law school. I had not. So
Uh-huh.
I started educating myself. And there's a lot of people who call themselves advocates. It's a little risky when you hire somebody. I would recommend you really check into them and get referrals from other parents. I was
Yes.
very serious about educating myself and knowing the students' rights. And if I wouldn't know them, I wouldn't say anything. I also learned that a lot of advocacy was a bit of a chess game.
Yeah.
And there, I have very strong negotiation and mental stress games. I'm good at
Uh-huh.
that. So, and I learned a lot. I educated myself. I started out pretty low fee, and then it became very, very successful and very rewarding. And but back to Colin. So, no, I can finish the story about the business. So, I did that for 16 years.
Oh, wow.
Parents would hire me. I had my own business. And then I ended up selling it and moving to Tennessee. And it was very, it was a very rewarding career. But back to Colin, it took about a year to secure things at the level of 40 hours. I think until then, we just did a part time program. We got some crumbs from the state, and then we would self fund a little. And so, but it took about a year, and then we were in business for ABA. Speech, we fought the insurance company, and we got it from the school. OT from the school district. So I think that's all the funding we needed to secure, and then make sure they don't fire you, and you're right, or they don't call it fire. They don't end your services because he is now age appropriate, which you
Uh-huh.
have to make sure that's the standard, and also the quality of the provider. There's a lot of facets to advocacy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What would you, this is huge because, especially for all the parents, IEP is individual education plan. But for a lot of the parents, they don't only know what they know. There's not much education. So going in, especially in the early days, parents have no idea
No idea.
how these meetings are supposed to go about. And I always uh, preach to parents that they are the most instrumental team member and they have the strongest voice. And it's being on the other side of the table. I was a special ed teacher for 7 years,
Hmm.
and going into these meetings, I would always tell my parents before meetings, like, hey, you have the strongest voice. Speak up. If something doesn't sit right, say something because your advocacy means everything. You have the power.
You're an
And
equal team member.
exactly. And a lot of these meetings are an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
And on the administration side of things, they want to get in, get all the service providers. They all say their 2 cents. And at the end, the goal is to get a signature.
And it's predetermined. The services many times are predetermined.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Which is
then all
against
the,
the law. Yeah.
right, the service providers like OT, for example, will come in and they'll say, yeah, we propose to give Timmy, 30 minutes a week of occupational
Mhm.
therapist minutes. And it's like, okay, what does that even do? 30 minutes.
Yes.
Um, but what would you say? Like, what's your biggest advice for parents going into an IEP meeting? Not only fighting it through your business, but also for your son. Like, what would you say?
I personally would hire an advocate because when you
Mm-hmm.
think about it, as a parent, you do these meetings once or twice a year. An
Right.
advocate, if they're good, they do it every day. And I, as an advocate, saw like sometimes there was a parents that preferred like a little coaching. When they say this, what do I say? Da, 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 da. But their jargon and expertise, and they will out-talk you if you are sitting there and you're much more nervous when it's your own child. I remember
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning when I was already a professional advocate, kind of just feeling way more emotions during IEPs. And so you're now sitting there in an elevated state and you have to take in things that the other side got to practice. And there's I mean, I don't want to sound bitter, but there is, like, for example, this is just an example. If you ask for an ABA therapist in a natural, in a typically developing or a general ed classroom, the district will say, "Oh, you don't want them prompt dependent. Don't want somebody hovering over them." And if I would hear that, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I don't." Well, come on, that
They
is
don't want to pay for it.
no. And if the ABA therapist is hovering at inappropriate times or making them from the prompt dependent, you don't have the right ABA therapist. Now, I would
Yes.
know to say that every standard argument, and I swear through the districts, they all talk. I would see an argument here, and it would come over there, and it would come over there. All of them, they take practice, and if you find an advocate or a friend, it'll take away that emotional charge, but also it's an art to choose your words wisely, still give respect to the other side,
Yeah.
and um, because I had some really feisty parents that I was known for having good client control.
Okay.
Because you don't get anywhere and then they shut down. It's not because I don't think they, sometimes it was deserved, depends on who it was. In general, I think you should be courteous, and a lot of district people are hardworking, lovely people. It was more the administrative side sometimes. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would try to find a capable advocate. But with that said, there is a lot of advocates who just decide they're advocates. So you have to be talk to other parents for an advocate, or bring another parent who's has done this for many years, or educate yourself as an advocate. These days it must be much easier to do that online. Read books, role play.
Right.
Mhm.
And a little insider coming from the education side.
Mhm.
Administration and teachers are definitely scared of advocates.
Yeah, I got a lot of insiders too. It was fun. I had
Yeah.
people texting me. I had got a lot of referrals from teachers. Parents would go up to them and say, if you were looking for an advocate, who would you hire? And then they would mention my name. So, yes. And I would
Yeah.
always, yeah, actually, I could sense the tension sometimes, and I'd be like, ooh, there's some red spots here, there's some trembling, because I would assess that and go, okay, I need to ease them, because if you all don't talk, I don't get mistakes that I can document later and then say, how do you want to solve this? So a big part of advocacy is asking questions, looking all sweet, and then
Uh-huh.
hoping for answers that maybe violate some rules and regulations, and then putting them in a very nice letter and calling up the special ed director and saying, how are we going to fix this? That
Yes.
was 70% of my job. Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
an art. It's definitely an art. I
yeah.
know every year I would get my caseload. That'd be the first thing I would look for. I'm like,
Ad-
which one of my students has an advocate?
yeah.
And I remember my first year teaching, uh, one of my students had an advocate, and they were like, "Oh, good luck, watch out." And I remember thinking, like, why are we here? We're teachers. We're here for students.
Yeah.
So if they have an advocate, isn't that a good thing?
Yes, but there is some advocates who are not courteous.
Right.
Have you ever dealt with that?
Yeah, yeah. There
I
was one.
know some that took pride in being escorted off the campus, and I don't know why that's a good thing. Shutting down the meeting, wasting time for the student, and
Right.
how I don't just see you. The parents might just see you on this IEP, but I'll see you next week for the other child. And you're not going to be happy with me. How are you going? How are we going to cooperate?
Right,
Don't
right.
burn
It
your bridges.
goes back to the team. It's a
Yes.
team effort.
But
And
I
if
love your attitude that you were welcoming to advocates and consider it a good thing. That I agree.
yeah.
But the
Well,
advocates still need to behave.
yeah, yeah, there was some that were pretty disrespectful, but it just goes back to like, why do you get into teaching? To help students.
Hmm.
And so if they have, if an advocate is asking for this, like, what does it hurt to give it a try?
Or to explain why not.
Right.
Which
And if,
no,
yeah,
but if you're right, you're right.
yeah,
I think I did build that reputation where I was considered reasonable. Yes.
yeah.
And
Well,
and so that would be, I would probably, yes, that would be one piece of advice. And the other one is, do not sign the IEP the day of. It is not necessary. I practice this with parents, and some, you're like, okay, you're hopeless. But most of them, I was like, okay, so they want you to sign on the spot. So have your answer ready. I'm really tired. This is a legal document. I'm going to read. I haven't read every page. Or if you've read every page, which is hardly ever done, especially the 1.5 hour ones that you're talking about. If you've seen every page, say, I wasn't able to take it in. It was too much information. This is all very reasonable. And
mm-hmm,
then you'll get the eye roll or pressure silence, and I'm like,
mm-hmm,
count through it, see how long will they pressure you, and make it
mm-hmm.
into a game. Like, really, like, this is your IEP and now you're being pressured. So if you switch that mind frame, it'll go away. And then some parents were just funny and they could never do it. I'm like, all right, you're not going alone. I'm not rescinding your stuff.
Right.
Most of the time I would go with them because
Uh-huh.
that's what I do, but once in a while I'm like, you can handle this, do not sign. And then we would practice it. I would give him pressure,
Yeah. Oh, wow.
and most of the time it will work, because if you switch that mind frame, like, really, like, I am not allowed to take this in and read this more at home. It's not convenient to you, or what? And we all know what that's not the reason, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it would switch the mind frame for the parent, and also it helps feeling as an equal team member.
Hmm.
None of these games, nope. And it's never the teachers that do things like that. Teachers are, or almost never.
Right.
Teachers
Well,
are
I
usually lovely and cooperative and hardworking. You all are so hardworking. Yeah,
yeah, I think though a lot of parents don't even know that.
yeah,
They don't even know that they don't have to sign.
yeah.
And then they're also under the impression that they can only have one meeting a year.
Yes. And what parents don't know also, which is the most of the time we would partially agree.
Yeah.
We agree and accept and give our permission for these services to commence. While we don't agree with this by let this not be construed as our, I don't know, I had a sentence that we think the whole program is appropriate, so we could, keep that option for possibly wanting to file for disagreement later. But
Hmm.
yes, you can note your disagreement with certain parts of the
Right.
IEP. And what's also really important in IEPs is that you identify the needs. Don't just go through the present levels of functioning like, yeah, 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 yeah. No, make sure your child's reflected, not what Johnny can do, what Johnny can do and cannot do and should be doing at this stage of development.
Right.
Then what I would do if I get an IEP, I go through the present levels of functioning, I highlight where there's needs, and then I write a little G in the margin. That means it needs to translate into a goal.
Mm.
And that's then I would look back, and when the annual goals are written, make sure all the goals are rep, all the needs are addressed with a goal, sometimes an accommodation, but mostly a goal, and goals drive services. So if
Hmm.
this OT says, oh, 30 minutes a week, and you have three robust, measurable, specific goals, then you're like, well, how are you going to do that? Oh, 30 minutes a week. Well, if after 3 months he's not on track, you can call an IEP and say, hey, he's not on track. Either you get more services or you're documenting it's not working. It's a win-win situation. So there's a lot of technicalities to IEPs. I'm probably getting too in depth.
No, no, that's huge. I'm actually starting to plan a course for parents
Ah,
to teach them all of these hacks because they're under the impression they have to sign. They can only get one meeting a year, but you don't have to sign. And you can call. I had one parent, we would have the IEP, everybody would be dismissed. The what were they called? Special ed coordinator, my boss,
mhm.
would sit with the parent for like another couple hours as she went through
Oh, that's
page by page. And then uh, it was the running joke of, okay, we'll see you in a month. She would call another meeting every month
nice.
to
Okay.
to do exactly what you're saying
Yeah.
and make sure the progress is meeting the goals. And also a big hack is really parents need to have a game plan of
Yes.
of where they want to see their
Hmm.
kid
Hmm.
go,
Yes.
because
So it
without
is.
intention and clarity around what you actually want out of their program,
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to plan for.
And it is a bit of a negotiation. It might not look like that, but it is a bit of a negotiation.
Oh,
I
totally.
once so I did this IEP after IEP, and I would have the same parties a lot. Once I was in the street pulling out of my parking spot, and the speech therapist was walking by that I dealt with all the time, LAUSD. I opened my window and I said, "Hey, Karen." I said, she goes, "Yes." I said, "Did you say one time a week because you knew I would say 3 times a week and we would end up at 2 times a week?" And she goes, "Maybe." And she kept walking. So, inside
Yeah.
scoop.
No, no, yeah. It's a game. It's a game,
A bit
unfortunately.
of a negotiation, and you definitely have to convey your respect while them being on edge and giving your child the best. Like I'm usually Carmen everywhere, but at my child's school, I was Mrs. Carly. Yep.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
also, yeah, Mrs. Carly, I was like, where? That was my mother in law, but not at my child's school.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. So, that was good. There's a lot of power in that IEP process. What are some things Colin taught you that maybe you wouldn't have learned otherwise?
I had an answer. Or I had thought of that, but I don't know if I can think of it. Uh, well, as you know, Colin has the best sense of humor.
He's so funny.
So one of the things he teaches me is to laugh no matter what happens.
Yeah.
He's taught me to appreciate different brains and really still respect them.
Uh-huh.
Um, I don't know what else. I mean, I don't know if this is Colin in particular or just having children. They teach you so much and they
Right.
humble you. I thought I was a bit of a know-it-all, I think. And yeah, you have to eat your words on a regular basis. And that's
Uh-huh.
good for anybody. Um, Also, Colin, his stamina is very impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive. His willingness to keep trying. I don't know if that's teaching me, but it teaches me admiration. Yeah.
Right, right. And this recording will drop after Collins. So if you're tuning in and listening to this without listening to Colin's episode, you're gonna have to go back and listen to Colin because all this will make sense.
Colin's just really funny.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. What? How about autism in general? What are some misconceptions that, as a parent, you would wish weren't there?
Um, well, the big one to me, but different people have different opinions, is that there's a big medical component to this. And while it was presented, the diagnosis, like this is how it is, I don't know if they said I know by law for insurance, it the law changed after we received a diagnosis in the sense that for insurance, they would say it is now considered a medical diagnosis, and that's why insurance were paying for ABA.
Hmm.
But the impression I was given when he was 3 years old was it's mental, and there's nothing you can do to address the physical discomfort. Oh, that's just part of autism. The weirdest things, they're physical. Oh, that's just part of autism. So I wish there was a little more consideration for the physical suffering. I
Yeah,
had a lot of clients, and sometimes it was so obvious they were suffering, like they had stomach aches, or they were extremely underweight, or uh, gray-ish.
yeah,
Yeah. So there's that I would like that to improve in just in society in general. Misconception,
yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah. There, I mean, there's. I think a lot of parents can get stuck in that mindset and that thought process. Like, oh, my son has autism, my daughter has autism. I guess that's just how life has to be.
Hmm.
But you've proven that with a lot of tenacity and some motivation, like you can turn some of these symptoms around.
So yes, to explain it a little, Colin was diagnosed. He had a lot of symptoms and he was delayed. His IQ was considered normal. Um, my husband and I sometimes think in hindsight, this is also why entities, funding entities fought us so hard because this boy had a lot of potential. He had a
Uh,
lot of years of ABA. They could see that. I didn't know that. But he had 8 years of ABA, so, um, but he had, I think, almost every symptom there was, and a lot of delays. And if you see him now, he's a fully functioning adult that with good quality of life. He works, he travels. Yeah. So
yeah,
n- not everybody that meets him later in life would understand where he came from at all.
how far he's
Yeah.
come. Yeah, that's amazing. Let's switch gears a little bit. and talk about your journey personally.
Hmm.
How did you take care of yourself during all these?
Yeah, that's another area that could have used a little more love. Well, I did always go to the YMCA to work out. That's one thing
Okay.
I always did.
Uh-huh.
Um, in the childcare there, they knew all about autism. They knew about gluten. We have friendships from that YMCA to this day.
Wow.
But my husband and we worked so hard at everything. We didn't do a lot of self care. We I remember, and that was also the part of looking at my daughter like, oh, she's okay. My mind was very hyper focused. I even got to a point where if somebody would tell me about a book that they were reading, I would think in my head, is it about autism? Why would I read that? But I would just be like this, and just it was it gave us a lot of energy and it moved our mountain, but it also burned us out. In 2019, when I had done this job for 16 years and we had recovered, that's a relative term, our son,
Mm-hmm.
and our daughter was doing well, I was physically not doing well. After every IEP, I would have to take a nap. That doesn't work when you're a professional advocate. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to retire at an early age. I was 51,
Mm-hmm.
and thank God I could. We moved out of state,
Mm-hmm.
and I am just now, after 6 years, really feeling strong again.
Oh wow.
So we burnt the candles at both ends. I don't regret it, but it's probably a little smoother if you go a little easier. I
I
wouldn't
see.
recommend
Yeah. No, totally.
it.
No, that's so good. That's so
Yeah.
good. How about on the marriage front? I know how long you been married?
31 years, 32 this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, any challenge or obstacle is rough on marriage,
Hmm.
especially families with uh, kids with autism or any kind of disability. Divorce rates are
Yeah.
much higher.
Yeah. So I have thought about this a bit, and I also had a lot of clients where I could see the strive and you know, the the pain and the different opinions and sometimes denial. And so even though things were hard at times, and sometimes we would not immediately agree about what to do, or my husband sometimes would think, when is enough with all these interventions, but we usually ended up at the same page as far
Yeah.
as what to do next. But I really think it made us stronger because in our case,
Uh-huh.
we both wanted to fight so hard for our son. When I
Wow.
look at my husband and I see that he's giving it its all and he sees that in me, that creates an enormous respect. I always tell him that's hot. I mean, what else could you want in your
Awesome.
partner?
Right.
That is really that. Not that there weren't problems, not that there weren't hard times, but that really brought us closer. We had a common goal.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Being on the same page, a common
Mhm.
goal. A phrase that just this reminded me of growing up. My dad would always teach us for when we were going to be married and have a family. He's like, "You want to know how to get to your wife's heart?" I'm like, "What, Dad?" He'd be like, "Through your kids."
There you go. He called it.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, it's so true. I have four kids under 8, and yeah,
And in our case, I don't think it's for everybody, but maybe for you too. It's also the way to my husband's heart.
yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
not it's. But I have seen a lot of families fall apart. Sometimes my clients, or you could feel the tension about one wanting to do the diet, the other one not wanting to do the diet, or thinking it was over the top to have a certain ABA program, and that I feel very lucky. I, I don't think I would have responded well to that.
Right.
Like I could take a lot, but Yeah, I'm not sure how well that would have gone.
Yeah. How about we can get a little controversial? RFK's speech, I don't know, a couple weeks ago about finding the cause for autism, and he stated in his speech that autism destroys families, and the autism world just went bananas. And I put out a post from my perspective in working for 7 years with families. I mean, I saw it firsthand, but on the higher functioning end of the spectrum, that didn't sit well with them.
Yeah,
What did you think?
I love RFK. I'm very grateful to him. I
Uh
followed him
huh.
for 25 years at least. I think he spoke the truth, and it can destroy families. I know families, I knew mothers that had to sleep in front of their child's door, um, on a mat,
Mm-hmm.
because the child would be escaping and it would be so dangerous, and they were escape artists. They would be in
Mm-hmm.
the street in the middle of the night. I know families where adults, they are cleaning up fecal matter on the wall for their
Mm-hmm.
adult children. They will not travel together because always one parent has to be there. Uh, I feel very blessed with our outcome, but it could have been very different. And
Mm-hmm.
it made my family stronger, but I mean, there is no norm in autism. So it's
Right.
okay to say that.
Yeah.
I don't think it takes, I personally don't think it takes away of the person with autism. I think it can destroy families without, it can. I
Yeah.
don't think he was saying for everybody. And I'm just so thankful to a man that has done so much for our community,
Yeah.
and he has sacrificed a lot,
Oh,
throughout
totally.
in his career, in his personal life, his family ties. Him and Dr. Wakefield, to me, they're heroes. So,
Right. Right. Yeah. What advice would you give to parents
uh,
in this journey?
don't burn the candle at both ends, but do give it your all. Give it your all, a little more balance than we did, but give it your all so you don't have to regret and wonder, what could have been. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Now, that is with the caveat that most interventions we did, we had a responder. Colin was very textbook responding to a quality ABA program. If your ABA program is not going well, you probably have to look at the quality of the provider or the methodology. Maybe you're not a good match. But Colin responded to so many things so positively, it made us eager to pursue more. I have seen families that did things and it wasn't that clear. So,
Yeah.
but I think giving it your all with a bit of a balance is the way to go.
Yeah. And never stop. Just keep going. That's good.
Yeah.
What
So,
a,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, if you could pinpoint one thing, like what was the most important thing you did for Colin?
Yeah.
Probably just
So my bestie and I, we would always like, if you would have to pick the diet or the ABA, the diet, and we'd be like,
all of it.
we couldn't make up our mind. I guess if it was life or death and I had to pick, I guess I would pick the biomedical, just because you can teach things as a parent. And I feel if you don't clean up their physical being, how can you expose them to intensive learning? It's almost cruel, in my opinion. So but I think they're both very, very important.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll spill the beans a little bit from Colin's episode. So Colin he went through all these therapies, everything going through school and everything. Currently today, well, first he went to trade school for 18 months, I believe he said,
Yes.
and
Way
he
so
worked
much.
his way as on a tugboat, That's one of his few accomplishments. He trains in jiu-jitsu. He drives his own car. He's moving to Costa Rica to work construction. His goal is to learn Spanish and find a lady. I teased him. I was like, "Oh, you're gonna come back with a Costa Rican, a tica,"
Yeah,
and he was like, "Yeah, why not?"
maybe.
Yeah, but fully functioning on his own as an adult, and he spoke. He was the first speaker at the Autism House Summit a couple weeks ago in San Diego. What was it like for you, 28 years later, going through this whole journey, to see him on stage speaking?
It was life changing. It was very
Yeah.
emotional, and it was like I get goosebumps just thinking about it now.
Wow.
It was just the best, and also for him, um, he 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 shared this in his speech, so I feel I can share this. He did feel different and less than for a number of years,
Yeah.
and struggled, and a little bit was addressed when we went to there's a bus that RFK's Children Health Defense organization sends around the country, and they will interview you, and they will, and it's about vaccine injury. But Colin was struggling, and I saw the bus was like an hour from us, so I said, "Hey, there's this bus. Do you think you want to go there?" And I think it might help you. And he goes, okay. So what we had done up until then, he would not reveal to people he had autism, and he would not talk about it. He considered it shameful, maybe. I mean,
Uh
that's
huh.
my impression, not his words. So when we went to the bus, I was, in hindsight, very naive and outdated, because this bus has made 3 documentaries, facts 1 through 3. So I
Right.
thought, if they are going to use our footage, they will make us sign something, and that's that. Well, so we're going into the bus, we're getting prepped. He wanted me to sit next to him in case he had questions about the when he was very little. And right before they go, okay, we're going live on Twitter and Rumble and something else. 10, 9. And the beginning, I was like, oh, okay. So much for anonymity. But he
Yeah.
didn't mind at all. And he had a lot of hits. And on
Uh
the way
huh.
back, he said, I am no longer going to be ashamed of my autism. And that was
Wow.
the beginning of like a breakthrough.
Uh huh.
And then we got this offer for him to speak. And I didn't want it to be my idea. So I just showed him the text. And he said, y'all do it. And then he went, and when he saw the room, he was like, oh, well, that's a big room.
There's a
But
lot of chairs.
he had prepared, and he did it. And throughout, after he spoke, he got so many positive reactions, and it was, I think, for him, life changing too, because he's
Yeah.
never seen the positive side of what this diagnosis can bring, and
Right.
what he can do for people. I mean, I
Yeah.
would look over and go, where's Colin? Oh, he's talking to somebody. Where's Colin? Oh, he's hugging with somebody. Where's Colin? Oh, he's praying with somebody. It was amazing, and it didn't
Yeah.
stop. It was the whole weekend.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm very grateful. I really think this is the beginning of good things.
Yeah, there's so much hope going forward. I know when I was sitting there listening to him speak, what he said he loved to surf. He does jujitsu. He's moving to Costa Rica. I lived in Costa Rica for 4 years,
You
or
did?
sorry, 4 months.
Hmm.
I tried to live there. We bought a one-way ticket early on in our first year of marriage, and we only stayed 4 months. But and he was doing construction. I'm like, I do all these things. This guy, and then he finished speaking. I'm like, I gotta find him, and I just went straight up to him.
Oh, that's
It's,
amazing that you have so much in common.
I
Yeah, and then
know.
in the end, somebody asked him a question, and I was like, okay, how is he going to do with that? Because, I'm very much like, a lot still, because that's been my life.
Uh huh.
And somebody said, what advice would you have for parents? And he said, I was like, puddle. He said, tough times don't last, but tough people do. I was like, wait, what? It was just amazing.
I mean,
He's amazing. He's an
he's got
amazing guy.
a lot of wisdom for 28-year-old.
Yeah, and you know what I advise I would have for parents, because I was
Yeah.
reflecting a little bit, is one thing that made me very tense and gave me a lot of stress was, I don't know if I heard this or read this, but it was the window's closing. You need early intervention. The window's closing. This is your opportunity. And what I have concluded is the window doesn't close at all. I
Mm,
mean, sure, there might be more opportune times for certain things, but we're all still learning. I still see so
yeah.
much growth in myself, in him, in anybody.
Right.
So I that really was an addition to the stress that I wish I would have looked at that differently, and I hope parents will look at it differently. The
Yeah.
window's not closing. Don't believe it.
Yeah, I think that message is pushed a lot, and there's a
Yes.
lot of pressure
Hmm.
early on in the journey of capitalizing on the so-called window.
Yeah.
But that's huge. That's
Well,
huge
I've
feedback.
used it in IEPs when I want to put pressure, but it doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
It all depends on the context.
True. True. What are your hopes for Colin's future?
Uh, that he reach his dreams and good
Uh,
quality of life.
yeah.
I know. Yeah, we're excited about the Costa Rica move. I don't know if it'll be permanently or we'll see. He does seem to fit there very naturally. The
Yeah.
vibe, the culture, and I think he would like a family. And of course, I would love grandbabies. So I'm a fan of that concept.
All
I have
right.
one grandbaby coming in a few weeks, actually. My
Oh,
daughter's
no way.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah.
That'll be fun too to see Colin as an uncle.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing. And then I don't know, that was amazing. That hour went by super fast.
Oh, okay. Great.
Um, so much power, and for parents just to know that they are in charge of IEPs. There's a ton of hope out there in the journey. There's therapies everywhere, and the example you gave in just getting after it and doing what's right for your kid. Uh,
Just keep swimming.
you keep
That's
swimming.
just keep swimming.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think you're gonna regret it if you give it your all.
no, you
No.
can't. You'll regret it if you don't.
Yeah, that's just be a little less intense than I was. Just a little.
Yeah, maybe a little touch of self care in there, but
Yeah.
you learn now. Any closing thoughts on your end?
Um, hmm, I think we covered it all.
Yeah, kind of skipped around a little bit.
Yeah, I think it was great. I really appreciate what you do, and I can't wait to see all of them. I'm going to catch up on them. So thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. It's funny because I started this podcast, I don't know, 5 months ago. Um, we were actually, I've always had this dream to start Unspecial from my teaching days, but I haven't been a teacher for 5 years now. And we were in the hospital, like the fourth hospital, going through the cancer with my wife. And we were one stint, we were there for like 55 days or something. And I probably halfway through, I'm like, now is the time I'm going to start this.
Really?
I'm sitting here, I'm bored. I got nothing to do other than, pace around the hospital. I got a little bit of ADD, so it was driving me crazy. And then I started it, but the timing of things is crazy because I had no idea that listening to parents' journeys through their challenges and obstacles would be so impactful for me going through it right now.
I saw that you posted about your journey, and I thought that was awesome. And why not? You
Yeah,
know,
it was like we got to Mexico. My wife hasn't really talked about it either. And we got here and she's like, I think I'm going to start talking about it. And I was like, that's funny. Because on the way in the car, I was thinking the same thing.
Wow, you're on the
It's-
same page.
so
So
here we are.
as you were saying, you were maybe making a course for parents.
Hmm.
I have felt a little nudged. So if maybe you want my help.
Oh, that would be amazing. We can collaborate
Yeah.
for sure. Because you have the other piece
Yeah.
that
I
would be huge.
and I'm pretty good at pacing myself these days, so it should be okay. I had a six-year break.
Yeah, you're ready to go now.
Yeah.
And Colin's moving out, so you're gonna be bored.
Yeah. No, I'm not a person that gets bored, but
Yeah.
expanding, yeah, feeling like you contributed is a good feeling.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
for
which
sure.
I'm ready.
Cool. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad. We'll definitely we'll be in touch.
All
And
right.
a little teaser. I have a book that I wrote. It's called
Oh, yes.
Special Days. It's 12 stories from the classroom, and I
Oh,
relate it back to the Bible and how I found God in all of my students.
no.
It's going to print here probably in a couple weeks, so it should be into the world in about a month.
Well,
So
I'll definitely will buy it.
yeah, we'll
That'll be exciting.
yeah.
And are some of the stories also funny?
I think they're all funny.
Oh, all funny. Because that's one thing we just get we did keep laughing.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's also why it was very good to have a bestie who had that strange life with therapist in your house and things your kid would say that were a little different. And
right.
just finding that humor is really it's beneficial to
It's
everything, your health, your marriage. Yes,
yeah. I think
yes,
we take life too seriously. Laughter is everything.
yes,
And I would kind of clash a little bit with some of the by the book specialists
yeah.
because I'm like, everything you're telling me is treating him like a project. Like he
Um,
just did the funniest thing in class, but you can't see it because it's not by the book. So,
yeah, I lost my fun for a bit. So
mhm,
I do get it. It's that
right,
hyper. It's a form of for me. It was a form of mourning, I think, and it could be maybe for people that work like that, like overly responsible feeling. But it is a shame. Yeah, laugh
yeah,
when you can. You're never gonna get that back. Yeah,
right,
so I got it back now.
yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. All right, well, thank you again so much for
All
being
right.
on.
You're welcome.
Can't wait to get it out there.
All
We'll be in
right.
touch.
Thanks for everything you do. You rock.
Uh,
And good luck
thank
on
you.
your journey there in Mexico.
Oh, thank you.
God
Yeah.
bless.
All right.
Thanks.